Hello guys, I'm back with a new video. This should be a pretty short and sweet video about the narcissist doing their thing, the obvious thing of the love bomb, idealization, devalue, discard phase. But this video is about the speed that the narcissist moves on to their new supply is directly proportional to how little they actually care about any of their supply, right? And I'm sure if you've been studying these topics for a while, you already know this, or you at least know that a lot of people are aware of this. And of course, with different levels of trauma, it can be harder and take a little longer to fully understand and comprehend these ideas. But another way to think about it is pretty much all of their telltale ways and signs. That's going to be a little bit of information for you so that you can understand and have peace and know that this is a person that doesn't care about any of their supply. Of course, they're going to signal and broadcast the very opposite because the way that they're acting is actually the opposite of the truth, and therefore they keep trying to exaggerate it. Therefore, they keep trying to exaggerate it and make it louder, because they're trying to drown out the truth, that they don't have anything substantial, that it's only something else that's going to backfire, and it's not real and it's not good. So the more over the top and exaggerated things are, there's you another little telltale sign that things are not working out and things are not the way they appear. So the thing that you can look for too on the way that the narcissist and the cluster B type person behaves in a relationship, the thing that can give you that permanent understanding that you can pretty much reverse exactly the opposite of whatever they're portraying, and that's the reality. And this is something that takes time for a lot of people to understand. It's kind of like if you're used to hearing a source of information that extremely, every time you hear what they're saying, it's been proven time and again that they're saying just the opposite of the reality and the truth of what's really going on. And once this has been proving time and time and time again, and you can see their motives for doing it, you can see why they do it, then you understand pretty much whatever they're saying is, number one, a lie, and number two, probably the very opposite, because they're so desperately trying to hide what's really going on. And this is kind of the same thing from their behavior. I would say the first telltale key sign to look for in the behavior of understanding that they have the opposite of the truth is the extreme exaggerated symptoms. The extremities, the exaggerations, such as the speed at which they gain a new supply, the sheer speed. Another example of an exaggeration would be the hyped up, over the top, hyper romantic insanity. There you go with exaggeration number two. And so if nothing else, they are desperately trying to invent and create something that's not actually that way. It's not serious, it's not real, and it's toxic. And this may be something that's a little harder for you to grasp because you are used to your version of that person. You think you know them and you think you know how they react in situations. So many people have said they were utterly stunned at how quickly they were dropped and how quickly that the abuser was with someone else. And so it can be hard to be able to accept and understand that this person's behavior is so far off base and they're not representing what's really going on inside, and that they are not representing reality in any way with their behaviors. And so look for the extremes. The extremes is your telltale signal, your little sign that it's all fake, it's all lies, it's all a game. Look at their fake elation and excitement, happiness, love, overjoy. It's ridiculous. And also, as many people have commented on my videos, and I myself feel very strongly, the last place I would want to be, in at least where relationships are concerned, is in a relationship with a person who is love bombing me and treating me like that. Something about that would just constantly bother me. Thankfully, I'm not the kind of person who has problems sleeping at night, but that is like an example of something that would give me a hard time sleeping at night. I think I would have a hard time sleeping at night if someone was treating me that way. These over-the-top love bomb, love fest, everything's hyper romance, hyper in love. I don't have a hard time sleeping at night, but I bet you that would give me a hard time sleeping at night. That would give me some sleepless nights. I've wondered, and I felt bad for people that say, that's something that would keep me awake at night. And thankfully, I don't really know what that's about, but I think that's something that would literally keep me awake at night. And so that is not the situation you want to be in at all, ever. And thankfully, I'm at that place. I know a lot of other people are. And so I think once you can see it and see what it is, you're also there. It's very understandable to not want anything to do with something that fake. The speed with which the narcissist moves on, the speed with which they dump you, the totality with which they discard you, and the speed that they're on to so-called another new love or a new supply, and the extremity of the so-called love. All of this is in direct proportion to how little they care, respect, nurture, genuinely love anything, anyone, and how little they're capable of this. These extremes are fake, illusory, they are a mirage, and I'm convinced that at least half of these people who are disordered, they believe it to a degree. They believe that something is new and exciting and happy is coming into their life, and it's like I say, they jump from high to high and they're not grounded in reality. And of course, it's short, temporary, not lasting, and they can't understand why. That's what keeps them caught up into a cycle of dysfunction and sickness, is that they have, when it comes to things like this, they're pretty much lost, you could say. They're not really sure where to start. They're not sure why things don't ever work out. They don't know what's going on. So this was just a reminder. I know we talk about these topics a lot on these channels, and it's a reminder of how extremely fake the extreme behavior, the extreme so-called emotions, and these sorts of things, the extremity of their projection of what they're trying to sell their situation as, the whirlwind romance, the elaborate over the top. It's a form of drunkenness, really. It's a form of drunkenness. Whether the narcissist participates in the drunkenness or whether they're merely trying to make their target drunk enough to fall for it, it's a form of drunkenness. It's unhealthy, unbalanced, it's wrong, it's evil. And this is true with any sort of a love bombing cycle or a flattery or a drunkenness, a sales tactic, a hook to get someone sold into something that's over the top and unrealistic, to appeal to someone's weaknesses or needs or blind sides, blind spots. I guess that would be the main point of this video, guys, is if you're used to it, you may be already used to seeing these signals and reacting to them or seeing them the right way, but it may take time if you're not. Just keep in mind that these extremes, when you see the extreme, of course, when you see the typical cluster B red flags, you can go ahead and make a lot of predictions about this person of why they're doing certain things. Of course, when they're being abusive, and then add that in there, you have a good picture of what's going on. But when you see those extremes, when you see the extreme in emotion or trying to evoke an emotion, when you see an extreme in the speed at which they move, the haste, the giddy haste, the frantic haste, those are going to be like your signals that this is once more what we're dealing with. It's the same old game. Here it is again. And it's a direct indicator of lack of respect, lack of care, and lack of true love in the situation. And no matter how long it may seem to last, no matter how much they will make you question of what's really going on, is this really a case this time of this dynamic, or somehow is this one different? For example, I have seen cases where there was a lot of the similar ingredients in the hypervaluation and a degree of discard, but in some ways it did seem different. However, it always has the same ingredients of it's not genuine, it's not anything that you would want. As a person who cares and loves, it's not anything that you would even be comfortable with. It's one of those lifestyles that is cold, desperate, miserable, no warmth, no life, no peace, no growth, no happiness, no joy, no genuine joy, and accomplishment and excitement and good things of life that not only are rooted in something real, in a way where it not only is real, but you have promise of those real good things growing in the future. It's very difficult to understand how these people live, guys, and how they try to make people live around them. You probably, unfortunately, if you have endured their abuse, you get a good picture of it. But what's really hard is when they're projecting and portraying as though their new supply is not under that abuse. And I can guarantee you at some level they are. Like I say, even if all the ingredients don't seem to be perfectly there, or the obvious discard has not happened yet, thankfully I've been given a lot of insight. It's hard when you don't have the insight, I can understand, but I've been given a lot of insight of when I see just a few little tips of the iceberg into a situation like that, I can see and feel how cold and desperate the entire situation is. Just imagine guys being stuck in a desperate plight of, you name it, a situation where your house is not your own, and some of you guys, I'm sorry if you are in this situation, but you're walking on eggshells. It just absolute horror and desperation. That's what the new supply is dealing with a lot of times, even when it's strange how a lot of times the new supply will be handpicked. They will be the kind of person who can make everything look extraordinary and wonderful on like a social media platform, but in reality their real day-to-day life is nothing that you would trade places for ever. It is nothing you would trade places for, because if you were forced to trade places, you would be like in those Lifetime movies trying to make your escape and your getaway out of the trunk of a car. It's bad. I think that's all I need to say about that. But whenever you start seeing these typical red flags, the same old game, the same situation, part of one of the good things that's going to be instilled deep inside of you that's going to grow over time, a strength that you're going to have, a wisdom that you're going to have, is that you're going to be able to sense and see and feel the truth of what's really going on in these situations is not anything blessed or anything good. But no matter how good they make it to appear, you're going to have an understanding and a wisdom that those kind of situations are nothing but doom. And that's going to be the word I have for it, is doomed. Simply doomed, and nothing hopeful. Nothing hopeful about that at all. So I hope that these reminders are helpful, that when you see the extremes, when you see a few of the cluster B red flags, your typical red flags, and when you see the extreme behavior, that correlates directly to new supply does not have a very good position. That's a sad thing. New supply is not being respected, not being cared for, and they're being set up for a pretty bad situation. It's a sad thing to see. So hopefully in many of your situations, if you're seeing this, you will be able to move quickly along. You won't be dealing with a simultaneous smear campaign, and you'll only have been played maybe for a little while, and you'll be able to move along into better things. But I understand if you get stuck. I understand if it's not that easy, and at minimum you're going to have to grieve what you thought you had and what you thought it was because of the elaborate lie that has been presented to you. So I do understand if there's going to have to be some grief there, that you're grieving what you thought things were, but hopefully at least you won't have a lot of confusion about what's going on, or a lot of confusion about the thinking that there's any hope, thinking that, well, there's some hope here. Things can be different and things can change. It doesn't look 100% like narcissism, so maybe I can actually work with this person. Maybe they'll come back. And that's one of the things. It may not look perfectly like narcissism, guys, but if these key factors are there, if the key typical factors are there, and whenever you are being abused, that's enough. It doesn't matter if the person does need to be saved, because that's the thing about cocktails in life. You can have a mixture of things. You can want so bad to help that person become better. You can see within a person like this, sometimes you can see that parts of them seem like they really want to be different and better. But with things like that, not only does the bad outweigh the good, and it's going to perpetually be nothing more than what I call a black hole of the only good that their good does is it serves to draw everyone and everything good around them into a black hole of evil. Therefore, even their good becomes evil. But even God himself calls things lukewarm and mixed. Whenever he sees a situation that is lukewarm, it's neither hot nor cold, it's kind of a mixture. Because these situations are so confusing and so ultimately damaging, even God says he will spit out a lukewarm believer. And so I believe, for me, I've taken that as my permission to dismiss the entire thing. When someone's being double and their good is going to keep luring me in, but their bad is going to perpetually damage and ruin me. That's like good cop, bad cop. It's some sort of a trap there. And so I hate it. I mean, sometimes the mamas in us and maybe the daddies in us will make us want to really help the person over and over and over and keep getting trapped into that because, this time may be the time that's different. But I've learned to see that as a trap. I've learned to see that as God does not accept something that is mixed. He does not accept mixture, and that's part of why when you're dealing with mixtures, people have even harnessed the idea of a mixture in nature for a lot of different scientific discoveries because it can be so powerfully utilized in different ways. I think that certain things have been built from mixtures like osmosis filters and I want to say transistors. It's a special trap that's formed when things are double. They're both at the same time. They can be traps for our minds, traps for our feelings, traps that keep us in bad for way too long. And so I wasn't planning on getting into all this in this video, but that's just some things to keep in mind. That where I was going with all of that is that the reason it's so important to call the narcissist what they are, recognize that they're repeatedly damaging and not changing, and the reason why it's important to just go ahead and call certain things what they are, even if we can't see all the sides of it. In other words, go ahead and say, well, this, since they rushed off and love bombed, it's the typical speed and it's the typical intensity, and since they had every other sign of the narcissist, then I'm going to assume that all the rest is true too, because in every case it ends up that way. And even if I don't see it immediately, it's coming. It happens every time. It's important to do things like that so you don't end up with mixtures, because no one narcissist is going to be the perfect textbook with every sign and symptom perfectly. There's going to be mixtures. It can get really strange. It can get heart-tugging and difficult. And you do want to help these people and save these people. Sometimes when you're that caring, good person and you really want to help someone, see their potential and be the best they can, a lot of times what happens though is that the reason this person is so diabolical, and double twisted, is because they themselves, there's something in them that enjoys what they think is like a special kind of a genius, right? They go around just violently harming people left and right, but they'll sit there at the end of the day and be arrogant that they're such a genius. That's just part of their game. But when a person has rejected the truth, sometimes they're given over to a trap too, where they are double and they are twisted and they are messed up and they are good and bad at the same time. I know a lot of you guys like to leave the comments, and I don't blame you, especially when you've run into them, that there's nothing good in them. They're all demonic, and some of them are. Some of them are just straight demonic. Nothing good left, it feels like, it seems like. But whenever you do run into the real tricky case, what I call the Jekyll and Hyde, where it's both at the same time, and a lot of these people have done what the textbook psychopath Ted Bundy and others like him have done, is they have completely lost their relationship with truth. They've completely lost it. So they're good and bad at the same time. They can never come to the truth. They can never come to solid, consistent footing with the truth. And what happens at the end of the day there is they use all of their good to keep sucking people in. They use any good that they have to suck people in, which is not good at all. So hopefully this is clarifying and helpful. Another thing to keep in mind with these people is, sure, maybe they can be saved and helped, and running off to a new supply is not going to do that, by the way. Nothing will help that except right between them and God. The new supply isn't the one who's way better than you that's going to actually help them or anything ridiculous like this, but they are, if you think you see hope in someone, you really care about them and you want to see better for them, if all they can do with people is keep abusing people, then the consistent thing that I keep saying about this situation is, one of the best things, if you really want to help these people, one of the best things is to do a disciplinary tough love type deal, where the step number one between you and me, buddy, is you're going to stop treating me this way. You're going to come to truth number one. Don't treat people like this. We are people and not objects. That sort of an idea. And then you have to give them to God and you have to pray. That's it. Because God can help these people and they can get what they need there. In other words, don't feel like you have given up on them because you got out of their life. That's one of the final hooks that can keep you with someone very damaging, so that you guys both go into the black hole of the abyss forever, is that, they desperately need you. You're all they have. Those moments. Oh, I desperately need you. You're all I have. What will I do without you? Oh, well, what you would do without me, the person that you keep harming, the person that you don't really respect, the person that you have no power and control over yourself to treat correctly and to care. What you would do without me is you might get on your knees and find God, and then really change, and then really do better. Something like that. So no, just because someone rushes off with new supply, that is no indicator whatsoever that they actually care about this person and that they actually have something genuine there. It's actually the opposite. The faster it happens and the more intensely it happens, the opposite. So I hope this has been helpful. Feel free to like and to share, to leave your comments. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you soon on my next video.